Welcome to On the Table with Ashley, a podcast where I explore ways in which we can lead more fulfilling lives and amplify human connection by communicating with less judgment and more respect. It's my pleasure to welcome Dana Grinnell to On the Table with Ashley. Dana is the founder and CEO of Free Living Co., an online business that curates and delivers toxic-free products for your home and body. Free Living Co.'s mission is to make clean living simple and approachable for everyone. Their motto is live free. From toxins, yes, but also in terms of living life on your own terms. Dana is a mother of 3 kids from 3 years old to 14 years old and previously worked in the medical device industry. She spent 17 years going in and out of hospitals for her work and witnessed the magnitude of illness in our country, often plaguing people with no known underlying conditions. Dana became interested in the impact environmental toxins can have on our health. She spent over a decade consciously removing harmful ingredients from her home in everyday products and found it complicated, confusing, and exhausting. Knowing there was a better way, she set out to create it herself in Free Living Co. Welcome, Dana. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I love your podcast, and I'm just super honored to be a guest.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I always like to start with just a little bit of, to learn a little bit about you. So can you tell us where you grew up and what kind of kid you were, what you liked to do when you were young?
Yeah, so I grew up in just outside of Seattle, it's now quite a big town, but at the time it was much smaller, called Bellevue. And I would say I was a fairly shy, very sensitive kid. I think part of that, I've grown out of that to some extent, but I would consider myself an introverted extrovert, if that if that's a thing. But I spent a lot of time outside. My family, we did a lot of sailing as a family, lots of trips to the San Juan Islands. Loved to camp. We were a big skiing family, did lots of ski trips in the winter. And then my main activity, my main sport was dance. And that consumed a lot of time over, like through middle school and high school. But yeah, I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. I was really tight with my family. I have 2 brothers who are just awesome humans and still really close to my parents. They're very healthy, active, 70 somethings. So yeah, I would say it was a good childhood for sure.
Well, it's funny. We in the episode with Dylan Williamson, we talked about introversion versus extroversion, and I think Dylan and I both feel similar to you. Like we like being with people, but we also need our alone time.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is, I think a lot of people are like that.
yeah, for sure.
And with the dance, did you have to make a decision in high school whether you were going to become a professional dancer, or where did that journey take you?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me in high school, I would have told you I wanted to be a professional dancer. And my parents were really, and looking back, it was a good, parental moment. They really encouraged me to go to a traditional 4-year college. And like, if you want to dance there, that's great, but like get a good foundation on your education. And I think it was good advice. And, once I got to college, dance kind of started to feel less important. Not that it wasn't something I still love it to this day. I love going to dance performances. I've served on boards for various dance companies, and I've tried to stay involved in it. But I think it was good advice at the time.
Well, now that I know this, Dana, I'm going to encourage you to have some dance reels on your Instagram.
So you're really trying to draw out the extrovert of this introvert here.
Okay, well, can you tell us a little bit more than I shared in the introduction about your journey to starting Free Living Co. and toxic-free products for our home and bodies?
For sure. I mean, honestly, it comes down to a family Saturday trip to Costco. I mean, it boils down to this one moment. Busy family of 5, we're active, we're outside all the time. My kids play sports. We do a lot of laundry, like 10 loads a week type, lots of laundry. And so I sort of picked the cleanest ish thing I could find at Costco. And I'd been using that laundry detergent for a couple of years, and driving home in the family truckster, it had leaked over the back of the car. And I noticed it had turned this like really weird like bright purple color. I call it radioactive purple color. And, if you look in the bottle when you pour it into your laundry machine, it's clear. So it occurred to me, I'm like, that was a chemical reaction that happened when it left the bottle into my car. And so, of course, I did some research, and this is like 10 years, 10 to 12 years where I haven't had a non-clean beauty product in my house. We buy all organic. I have a little garden and it's like ladybugs and coffee grounds. That's how we use. And yet this laundry detergent, sure enough, it was a glaring red F on the ewg.org website. It had cancer causing ingredients, had endocrine disruptors. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. I've been so good. I do read the labels. I do my research. And here, how did this laundry detergent creep into my house? And I just kind of felt like, what, if I'm out there and I feel this way and I am pretty good about like focusing on clean products, there are people that are kind of medium good and there are people that just don't have the time or energy to focus on it. Like there's got to be a need to have someone who will read all the labels for you, will only offer things that are truly clean. And, and then on top of it, the shipping and packaging overload of, I would get a beauty product from one company, a floor cleaner from another. And our recycling bin was like overloaded. And I thought, here I'm trying to keep my family safe and clean. And yet we're like damaging the earth with all this packaging and shipping, and the carbon footprint just isn't good. So I kind of combined my two issues into a solution. And that, that's what Free Living Co. does. That's what we're out there to help with, is really deciphering what's clean and then delivering it in a consolidated and efficient manner.
Amazing. Well, I want to get into a little bit more in a bit, like what is EWG and how do we understand their ratings and other companies. But before we do that, can you talk a little bit about how you curate your products, how your online business works, where you ship, and how you're reducing the carbon footprint in your shipping, versus what you were doing, which I think is just consolidation. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, so one of the biggest issues with products in the US, and it really is a US specific problem, we are actually lagging behind 80 countries in terms of regulation. Like there really is no regulation on ingredients that can show up in our products. So that's the big issue, right? Is like products can contain almost anything. There's 1,600 chemicals that have been banned in Europe that you can find, like even in stores that claim to be natural and whole and have standards, like you can find them on the shelves there. So that's what I aim to do, is to really do that research, understand what the ingredients are that are not safe, that are not good. And when I say safe, it's not like, oh, you could get a rash. It's more like, this could contribute to like a cancer trigger, or this could disrupt your hormones to the point where you may have to like embark upon a fertility program as you're trying to get pregnant, men and women, by the way. So, doing the research is really like the main crux of the business, and really making sure that everything is truly clean. I do, because it's a startup business, and, a lot of the research I've done myself over the years, but I also want to lean on, there are companies out there that do an amazing job. They have teams of scientists who evaluate ingredients and look for products that have, or the exclusion of those ingredients and the inclusion. You alluded to it, ewg.org is one of them. So I do like heavily lean on their research. Also Made Safe is an organization that does a really great job of, scrutinizing not only ingredients, but also the environmental impact on those ingredients. It's one thing if it's safe for human use, but if it goes down the drain and causes damage to sea life or, other parts of our earth, that's not good either. So I do lean on those organizations. So the curation process is really kind of starting with a wide funnel of, all right, we need like a beauty line, we need a few skincare lines at various price points, we need a men's line. And then I just try to find the absolute cleanest products I can. And then I test them. My family, my friends, I lean on, lots of people to just test products. I have one girlfriend, she's like a deodorant. She's very passionate about deodorant. So she's tested almost every deodorant I carry. And she's, she'll give feedback like, these are really good, but maybe not for summer when you're wearing tank tops, So yeah, I just, test everything. And then I carry what I think works best. I try to have a range of price points. I don't want this to create hierarchies in our society. I think clean products should be accessible to everyone. So I really try to find products at various price points. And in various formats, like making a shift, like use my example of laundry detergent, going from the big, huge, all I like liquid. So I want to make sure that I have a liquid. I want to make sure I have a powder, pods, I want to make sure I have all the formats so that the transition is really comfortable for people, that they're not having to make like a really big change and going from like liquid to powder. They can actually keep it the same, but just have a cleaner alternative.
So there's so many things I want to dig into in what you just talked about. Why don't you first wrap it up with talking about your shipping and the carbon footprint, and
Yeah,
just so we can close that loop?
sure, of course. Yeah, so I my ultimate goal is to have hubs in various locations around the country. So here in Park City, I actually deliver to your doorstep. I put all the products, and it could be a lip gloss, a floor cleaner, paper towels, dishcloths. In fact, I think I've delivered something similar to your house, Ashley. It's, I can deliver all sorts of things, and I deliver them in reusable totes. The totes are there if you want to use them yourself. If not, I take them back and I can reuse them. So that's the ultimate goal, is to really have hubs around the country where we can deliver. And I try to make it same day or next day. Like, I want people to have the products when they need them. When it comes to, so right now, our main hub is Utah. But we will ship, and the reduction in packaging is that we can actually ship across multiple categories. So most companies these days, you're buying Branch Basics, you're getting it from Branch Basics. You're buying, some makeup from Ajuva, you're getting it from Ajuva. So you're getting multiple boxes from multiple sources. So we can actually consolidate and deliver all of your clean goods in one box. So that's, in some cases, maybe limiting 10 or 12 shipments a month for
Yeah,
your
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so let's dig into these companies that are reviewing these products to tell us whether they're clean or whether they're, you said something was like an F. I think sometimes they're like numbers. So can you talk about the systems and how maybe these two companies are the main ones? And then how are those companies funded? Because I read some articles and, people are always pointing fingers. So I just want people to know, like, can we trust what these companies are saying and who's funding them? And like, let's just talk about the whole story.
Yeah, for sure. So in my opinion, the highest standards, and when I mean like the highest standards, I mean that they err on the side of caution with ingredients. So EWG.org, they've been around, I believe, 30 years. So they're established. They have in-house scientists that do the research. They actually do a lot of advocacy to promote regulation. They work with brands like Beauty Counter is a brand that's very public about their advocacy on Capitol Hill. The CEO, Greg Grenfo, she's very active in Washington and trying to get laws passed. So EWG works hand in hand with people like her. So they have a rating system, and so they have what's called an EWG verified mark. So brands can pay. There is a certification cost for a brand. They can submit their ingredients. They can submit, and they look at everything from like, how transparent are you with your ingredients? Where do you source your ingredients? What's the quantity? Like when you look at an ingredient list, you know that it's listed by most to least in terms of quantity, but you don't know how much that last item actually contains. And some ingredients, like preservatives is a big thing. That's a hard thing for beauty companies because they need to preserve the product, especially water-based products like lotion. You need some sort of preservative, and there are some natural options, but there are some preservatives that are safe if they're in a very small quantity. So EWG does all that work and figures all that out with their teams of scientists, literally under microscopes. And then they have a rating system for the consumer that makes it really easy. So EWG verified is the highest mark. Brands do pay for that mark. And then it goes down from there, 1 through 10 for cosmetics and beauty. And then household is A through F. So F obviously being the worst in household, and 10 being the worst in beauty and cosmetics. And it'll tell you the nice thing about EWG, they really promote transparency. They want their brands to be transparent. So they're very transparent. You can actually type in a beauty product, click on it, and it'll show you the ingredient that's of concern. And it'll tell you why that ingredient is of concern. So if it's some sort of fragrance is the big offender, right? Like, and that's a lot of the laundry detergents, a lot of the household cleaners that have a fragrance, that is usually the issue. But you can go into that, that item and see, okay, this is cancer causing or endocrine disrupting, or this could cause allergies. And then you can kind of make your decision as to whether or not you're willing to live with that effect.
So So let's just pause there for a second. And maybe we can add in the show notes a link to both of these sites so that people, if they have the energy and time, can type in products that they're currently using and love to see, sort of where they fall on the spectrum. And we're going to talk a bit later about how to make a transition so that it's not overwhelming. And maybe that's starting in one area and not feeling like you have to change everything at once. But I think that consumers, it's not just somebody like you who knows what you're doing. Like I could go do that if I wanted, if I just went to the website. Is that true?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how it started for me. I just was doing my own research for my own home and my own products. And they also have an app called the Healthy Living app. And you can actually scan barcodes. The
Okay.
challenge with the app is that they haven't reviewed every product. So they're pretty good. I mean, there's definitely thousands of products they've reviewed, but there's just so many products out there in the world that they haven't reviewed everything. So there's also like you can cut and paste the ingredient list. Like if you have a beauty product you love, you can go onto the website, get at the ingredients. Sometimes you have to dig deep in the website. Like they'll probably post their key, they call them hero ingredients, which are
Mm-hmm.
maybe like 3 or 4 things. And you have to dive in a little deeper to really find the true ingredient list, which is probably more like 20 or 30 if we're talking beauty and cosmetics. You can cut and paste that into a piece of their website called the Skin Deep Database. They have a build your own report
Okay.
feature. So you can cut and paste those ingredients in there, click review. It's not perfect, right? Because they don't know the quantities. So they're not looking
Right.
like there may be ingredient that they call out and say is harmful to your health. And that ingredient actually might be included in products that they've verified. But, so there is a limitation to that. But you can do that. And that's a great way to review your products in your house, or while you're at the grocery store, you can use the app. Um,
And one thing you and I had talked about, and maybe you can share your Instagram, is that maybe once a week you'll review a product. So if people reach out to you, they can at least get on the list for the review, because I think it's asking a lot of people to do it. I think a lot of people will be interested, but it's just another thing to learn. And we have so many busy, like we're so busy. We have so much going on in our lives. So will you share your Instagram, and if you're willing to, maybe do one of those posts a week?
yes, I would love to. My Instagram is underscore free living co. We're also on TikTok. Um, so yeah, the whole that exact instance happened. I had a girlfriend who was visiting, and I was just rolling out the company, and she's like, Dana, I will use every single product in your store except for there's one product I'm not willing to change. And she's like, I mean, if it's like a 7 or an 8, like I'm still going to use it. Okay. So just get your head around that. I'm like, hey, that's like progress over perfect. You love this product. Let's just look at it. And then you make an informed decision, right? Like if you decide a 7 is fine because it's like an allergy and you don't have allergies, fine, like use the product. So we cut and paste, like I mentioned, we cut and paste all the ingredients and put it into the Skin Deep database. And sure enough, it was like a bright red 10. I mean, like not even, there was no shade of gray there. And it came down to one ingredient. It was literally one ingredient. And this ingredient, I mean, the more I dove into it, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing, I mean, it even says like there's governmental restrictions. The government hasn't restricted ingredients in the US since 1938. In 1938, they banned 11 ingredients. That's the last time they've restricted ingredients in our country, which is why this is such a problem, right? And it even said there's a restriction from the government. So it was like one of those 11 ingredients, apparently, but it was in this product. And she was, of course, like so frustrated. She's like, I can't use it because it's a 10. And I told her, I was like, you know what, reach out to the brand. Like, reach out to the brand and say, like, why is this ingredient in there? And is there a substitute? Because clearly there are other tinted moisturizers on the market that people love that found a way around that one ingredient.
Right.
So I would say that, like, advocate for yourself. And if there's a product you really, really love and it comes down to just this one pesky ingredient, reach out. One of the things I heard at a conference I went to that I thought was so brilliant was, you vote with what you buy, right? When you buy something that's a little cleaner or doesn't contain fragrance or doesn't contain this awful ingredient that my girlfriend's product contains, you're pushing those brands to have to compete. Like they're going to have to step up their game and find better ways of having the same efficacy and the same sensorial experience with these products without including these harmful ingredients.
Yeah. So you said earlier that there are, I can't remember exactly the number, but a huge number of ingredients that are banned outside of the US in certain countries, like in Europe, that are not banned in the United States. And I've heard about this, I think sunscreen is kind of the big one that people talk about, that we allow certain things in sunscreen that are not allowed in other places. But it sounds like this is sort of across the board, probably in home and personal care products. Can you talk a little bit about why that is? And is it that the US doesn't believe that these ingredients are causing health problems, or is it because companies are lobbying the government, or a combination?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is a question that boils down to my opinion, right? Like
Okay.
I don't have any like hard facts on it other than, there are 1,600 ingredients that are banned in Europe that we can use in our products in the US. I mentioned like 1930, it's the last regulation we had on limiting products. In 2023 alone, Europe banned 29 ingredients. That's almost like 3 times the amount of ingredients we've ever banned in this, the last 100 years. So my opinion on why that is, I think it's both. I think it's really hard. Who's going to pay for research pointing to a certain ingredient causing certain things, right? Like, who's going to pay for that? Like, obviously not the companies that are putting that ingredient in the product, So it's companies like EWG that are nonprofits. They're constantly having to raise funds. That are doing studies like that, and so it's like, is it enough to go to Capitol Hill and advocate? And then also there's companies that are lobbying against regulation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, pesticides is a big one. Glyphosate is a known carcinogen, and it's like Cheerios. You can find it in Cheerio boxes. Glyphosate, a cancer causing. We're feeding that to our children, and it's one of those pesticides that like just they won't regulate because there's so much advocacy to using it with food production and all that. So, I mean, again, it's my personal opinion. I think it's both. It's hard to point these ingredients are actually when someone gets cancer, they don't think to themselves, oh, it's probably my laundry detergent that caused it. Right.
Right.
And then, there's really powerful companies lobbying against regulation.
So you were actually just telling me a story about a company that's doing some research to try to look at people's blood work, like before they stop using products that are not clean products and after. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is so cool. And that's one of the things, that's like the best part of my job is working with all these brands. I mean, the brands that produce the products I carry, there's a story behind almost all of them. Like either, like True Botanicals, she got cancer when she was 32. Jack Fur, he had leukemia, battled it for 3.5 years in his 30s. It's like there's a story behind all of them. The one that I was talking about was Branch Basics, and I just had a call with the CEO, and I thought this was so cool and cutting edge. They're actually, because it's one thing to go into someone's home and offer up, okay, this is more toxic, here's less toxic, right? That's one thing you can do to help, clean up, make homes less toxins. And that's obviously very effective on a one-off basis. What they're trying to do is prove, like, how do you get people to stick to it? So they have a retreat, and they'll take people into this, retreat for 10 days. They'll do blood work, and they'll do like a health evaluation ahead of time. They put them in an environment that's completely non-toxic. And we're talking, the air, the water, everything that, has cleaned the space, the sheets, you name it. Everything is, does not contain harmful ingredients, even the food. And then they take their blood work at the end of only 10 days. I mean, to me, that's not that long of a period of time. And at the end of 10 days, they do all the health evaluation again. And they found marked improvements and just those metrics that they're measuring. But beyond that, it's the way that people feel. And it's really like having had that experience of like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. I feel balanced. I don't feel all these, maybe health aggravations I was having before, whether it was eczema or, an immuno condition or whatever their ailments were. Maybe it's headaches or migraines or whatever. It's the way they feel. And that is the thing I think is most impactful, and that they'll stick to it, right? They'll come home and like, how do I replicate this in my own home? And how do I make sure that I'm not being exposed to these things, because I can tell the difference.
Yeah.
If you're constantly bombarded with toxins, you don't really know that it's causing these things that make you not feel great, right?
Right.
Until you actually
Yeah.
eliminate them from your life. And I think that's one point of encouragement I would say. It's like you can keep using the laundry detergent, you can burn the petroleum, paraffin candles, you can do these things, and you're not really going to know like what it's causing, if it's causing you harm at all. I mean, I think you even asked me this question, Ashley. Is like, how do I convince my family of this? Like, if they feel fine, like, how are they going to understand that these products are better? And I think you have to buy into the whole picture, right? Like, really starting to limit these toxins. Like, it's like it's inches that add up to miles over time.
Well, I think it's interesting. So, a couple of things. I want to talk about price, so like accessibility, because I think that's super important. Because I think, and I know that's a very strong focus for you, like to make it accessible so that I'm not really having to make a choice on a price basis, like something else is cheaper. And then it's functionality. So, I want to talk about both of those things, but
Yeah.
just a little story because I'm starting to switch over a lot of products. And I will say there are products that I had in my home that I thought were clean that I'm finding out were not clean, which I
Hmm.
think, is another whole topic.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Yeah.
but I got one of my sons one of your clean deodorants, and and while I think he'd like more options in like the scent, and the scents are much more mild, which I think is great. Um, he's like, yeah, my deodorant was actually making it red under my arm, which he didn't tell me, and I'm not looking under his arms, and this one is not. So I think even he can start to understand, okay, this is actually a product change that makes sense for me, and it's worth, if I might not get exactly the scent that I wanted, it's worth it. And then if I can instill that in my teenagers, I just think like what a wonderful thing I'm giving them to take into their adulthood, to just, to really be focused on not having chemicals and toxins in their everyday products. And the other thing I'll just say that my son said was, well, I'm just putting it under my arms. It's not going into my skin. And as you and I talked about, like that's actually probably one of the areas that you have to be extremely focused on what you're putting on your body, because it's right where your lymph nodes are. And
Yeah.
so we had that whole discussion, which is like in a totally different conversation in another episode with Stephanie Boy talking about sex education. She's like, kids think they know things they don't know. So it's important that we have those conversations so that they actually do know, right? And they're
Yeah.
educated. And I think this is obviously a very different topic, but the same thing. Like it's so important, not just for the health of our families in our home and for our communities, but to teach our children.
Oh, for sure. And it's actually, I am so passionate and I absolutely love talking to teens about this, because I actually find that they are more willing to change quicker than even adults. And maybe it's just less time on this earth, like less stuck in their ways. I don't know. Or just they're more impressionable and more willing.
Well, I've done a lot of research on teenage brains, and they are much more elastic than adult brains, which means that it actually makes sense that they could sort of pivot easier and change easier than we could.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have a teenager. I have a 14-year-old boy. I have a 10-year-old daughter. And I just like the Sephora thing is crazy, right? The girls, like I've heard of girls having birthday parties at Sephora and like that's all they want for Christmas. And I will say Sephora does have like a clean line, which is great. I'm not sure truly how clean the clean line is. I won't speak to that because I haven't done the research on that in particular, but I have found a large gap in the teen space. And this kind of is a good transition into your pricing question. Um, the teen space, like the products that are reasonably priced that a mom is willing to buy their teen, in my words, like they're kind of full of garbage, and the teens want them, right? They're fun packaging. They see them on TikTok. They want them.
Yeah.
And from the flip side, like the products that are could work for teen skin and that are very clean, they're kind of more at a price point that like I would spend on myself, maybe not so much on my 10-year-old daughter. And quite frankly, like she doesn't need the ingredients. Like she's not trying to eliminate wrinkles or, all the things that I might be trying to to work on with my skin. So I'm working on a teen skincare line actually as part of the company because it's been a big gap. I haven't been able to find one, and specifically for girls. So I've been talking to lots of teens, and your point on the elastic brain, like they really get it. I mean, they start to make the connections, and they start to look at the products they're currently using, and like if they just you give them a couple pieces of information or a couple tips, like we talked about earlier with EWG or Made Safe, and they're like, okay, like what I'm using is not good. Like this isn't good. Like it's causing potential health hazards. Like I don't want to use this anymore. I mean, they're pretty quick to kind of turn the corner, and they're very willing to try different products. So I think it's amazing to start with teens. And I find that even some of the teens are bringing their families along for the ride. Like the teen will be the one to kind of, dip their toe in with a product, and then all of a sudden their mom is buying some things, and then they're looking for something for the brother. And, so I think it's a great time in the teenage years. And, again, this is just me talking my opinion, but I mean, with the fertility, like 1 in 6 people worldwide have infertility issues, men and women. Men are just as much a contributing factor to infertility. And if they start in their teen years really trying to like mitigate those endocrine disruptors, who knows? Like maybe that is one way that we can start to, curb the infertility problem.
And, if price is not an issue, if I can find a product in your store that's around the same price as the product I'm buying at the grocery store or wherever I'm getting my cleaning or personal care products, then you're taking that issue off the table, which I think could be a big issue. And I think in the past they were more expensive. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'm sure people will say is, but it's not going to be as good. It's not going to be as effective. I'm not going to like it as much. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've heard me say a few times, I started this journey, 10, 12 years ago. Things have come a long way. I mean, a long way. There are so many options now, and really, really good options. And I think the more supply, it means that they're having to be more competitive with pricing. So I think pricing, I mean, I have things in the store that are like under $5, cleaning agents. You can also do a lot just with DIY. I mean, I have a cleaning vinegar that is in the store, but you can also just use vinegar. Like you can buy that at Costco. White vinegar is white vinegar. You can use that on your floors. You can even dilute it into a counter spray. You can add some essential oils, some lemon. There's a lot you can do from a DIY perspective on price. And then as far as effectiveness, I mean, these ingredients, I actually find, let's go back to the laundry detergent incident, right? Because that was the thing I had a hard time getting rid of, clearly. I have this big family of 5, lots of laundry. I get in the big tub. Well, now I use one of our eco refill size, which is like almost 70 ounces. It's much smaller than the format I was using before. However, for a medium-sized load, you just use a children's Tylenol cupful, 20 milliliters. Whereas before I was using almost a full cup. So I'm using much less product and getting the same results. So in some cases, in this example, I feel like the products even work better.
Yeah.
I will say the scent, you talked about the scent with your son. My son, one of the first deodorants I gave him, he's like, it doesn't smell. Like deodorant is supposed to smell. And I was like, no. Deodorant's supposed to help you not stink. It's not, I mean, he wanted like the cologne smelling deodorant. And so that is one, especially for teens, like if they're really into scent, that's one thing you kind of have to walk them through, is that scent is actually one of the biggest offenders in toxins. And these products do have scent. I mean, they're lovely scents, but they're much more subtle because they're essential oil or they're natural based. The fragrance is what gives you that like bombardment, like the cologne, almost the cologne smell of. Yeah. So that's one thing you kind of have to, but there's wonderful ways to add fragrance to your home in a safe way as well. Like we have a fragrance spray line that's lovely. There's safe candles that are made with beeswax or coconut wax and have natural essential oil scents. Yeah. So you don't have to eliminate scents from your life altogether. It's just,
Yeah. No, that's great. And then, and I would say, and I obviously have a lot more products to try, but I'm slowly sort of switching over. I want you to talk about that. You're like, I think you said last pump, last squeeze or something. Can you talk about that? Because, and you and I share this view that like, we should have no judgment. We're all doing the best job we can, raising our families, living our lives, right? And your products are just there as an offering to people because of everything that you've learned and you want to share it. So, can you talk a little bit? And you have a manifesto on your site, which I really love, and I encourage people to go look at. So, maybe talk a little bit about your manifesto, which is sort of the ethos of free living, aside from having no toxins, and then taking that into like a no judgment zone. Like, this is not, I'm a bad mom or parent because I have these products in my home. Like, no, we all have lots of products in our home that we've been marketed and that we like the scent or we like the way they work. So, no judgment. You're offering what I think or I agree is a better way. But can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And the manifesto, I wrote that. I was coming home. I was feeling really inspired. I came home from a clean conference. This is just as I was kind of starting to build the company. And I was just thinking about like living free, what that means. And clearly, the basis of my company is living free from toxins. And we're trying to make that easy and simple and approachable for people. And hopefully, like a really positive experience, like your son, maybe he needs to try, another scent, but like he doesn't have this rash under his arm anymore, right? But also like beyond that, it's like, there's so much worry and there's so much hate and contention and so many things in this country that just bog us down. And I feel like, everything is connected, right? Like our brains are connected to our bodies, are connected to our space, and trying to like find ways to set all of that free. That was kind of what the manifesto was about, is like, let's live free from jerks and BS and worries and anxiety and all these things that again like kind of bog us down. And to me, like, if we can kind of be the impetus for helping people clean up toxins in their world and help feel healthier and better, and hopefully a lot of that stuff follows as well.
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in that. And it's actually, and I think this is why we got along so quickly because I think we think the same way. And that's a lot of what I'm trying to do with my brand Amaton too, more through objects. And you talked about objects affect our space. I really believe that. Like I walk into a room and I feel something, or I interact with like a ceramic mug or certain things, and I feel a certain way. And the same is true for products we use, in our homes, on our bodies, but also how we interact with people. And connection is the through line of life, and we all need it. And we definitely don't need the negativity that sometimes comes at us, or in more frequently in our society today, which is why I have a focus like on this podcast on increase your curiosity, learn, decrease your judgment, increase your respect, right? We're going to end up all in a better place when we do those things. And I think what you're doing with free living is really similar.
Totally. I mean, there's so many parallels in our businesses, which is so fun. And that's what it's about, right? Like this, the whole point of my company isn't trying to tell anyone to just roll in the dumpster and dump everything and come buy everything from me. That's not it at all. I mean, I'm just trying to bring awareness to the fact that you really do have to advocate for yourself when it comes to the safety of products in your home and on your body.
Yeah.
And so there's absolutely no judgment. I mean, I told you I've been working on this for a decade, and I had a highly toxic laundry detergent in my car just this past summer. I mean, the industry does not make it easy. And greenwashing has gotten so significant and so intense. Like, what else are you supposed to do? Like, of course, you're going to read the label. And if it says natural, you're going to assume it's natural, right? Like, you're not going to know that, well, there's one natural ingredient and 15 of them are highly toxic. Like, that's, so I always say, like, there's no clean shaming, right? One step forward is a really good step, and very small steps over time add up to, a much cleaner life. So I'd like to say, like, the last pump, last squirt rule, like, rather than just gutting your drawers and whatnot, that's financially probably not realistic for most people. Just as you use that last squirt of lotion, look at it before you buy that same brand again. Again, you vote with what you buy, right? You're telling companies what you want when you buy a product. So instead of buying that product again, do a tiny bit of research. Like, is this actually clean? Does it say fragrance on the back? If it says fragrance, opt for something different. And same thing like with your household cleaners. And, if you have cleaning people, I actually have a friend who, she got like this really fancy, I guess it's like an HVAC system where it would actually tell her on the control panel, like when there's like a influx of toxins. And she's like, it literally just goes glaring red every time my cleaning people come in and leave. She's like it's everything's red. Like every room is red. And so it was just like a really obvious signal that what they were using was highly toxic. And a lot of people don't like to provide their own products because there is cost associated with that, but my whole thing is like, well, what's the cost of all these ramifications on your health? And like, you
Yeah.
may not immediately feel them, you may not get cancer tomorrow, but like over time, we kind of go back to that branch basics, when you feel so much better when you don't have these chemicals in your world. So, if you have cleaning people offering up your own products or encouraging them to go for a more natural alternative, there are people looking for that these days.
Well, I think this is a new offering that you could have, which is to have like an entire setup if people have cleaning people come into their house for them to use.
Yeah,
And you could separate it by like, the purpose of the products to make it easy for crews coming in. So I love this idea.
totally.
Love this
No, I
idea.
love that idea. We're actually starting to talk to homeowners who rent out their homes because there are travelers who are looking, coming from states that are more, better about educating on toxins, or people that are looking, or people who have health ramifications if they have autoimmune disorders or allergies, and they're looking for Airbnbs and rental properties that use not non-toxic products. So
Yeah.
we're looking in all that space, and if that is of interest, I mean, I love talking to people about this and creating programs that work, because at the end of the day, my business model is the products, but my mission is to really just educate and limit the toxins in our world.
Yeah. Okay, so I love it. No clean shaming. And the last episode that I did was with my sister Jennifer Golbus, where she talked about her journey to sobriety and alcoholism, and we talked a lot about shame and the destructive force of shame. So we want no clean shaming here.
No.
So can you talk a little bit about, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I bought in. I want to make some changes. Where should I start?
Yeah. So that's such a great question, because it is, I mean, you could just, you can dig this huge, deep, dark pit if you're not careful. I would start with the things that, well, if you're thinking kitchen, like things that touch your food, right? Like you don't want chemicals leaching into your food. So dish pods, that is a great place to start. And there are really reasonably priced dish pods. It's something you have to buy anyway. Why not opt for the cleaner version? Because that's touching the dishes, it's touching your food and that you're eating. So that's a good place to start. Counter spray, I would say, if you're a big counter spray person, you can do a lot with hot water, hot soapy water, or even like a little lemon or a little vinegar. I mean, that would be a great way to clean your counters in a very, economical way. But yeah, in the kitchen, start with anything that touches food. In the bathroom, with your self-care, your skin, most people know this, but your skin is your largest organ. So focus on things that touch a lot of your skin, right? Like if you're one of those people, if you live in Utah like we do, and it's super dry and you put lotion on your body once or twice a day, make sure your lotion's clean, right? That's going like all over your entire body. Your scalp, actually, little known fact, but your scalp is actually the most absorbent part of your body. And a lot of people, myself included, actually, I just learned this a few months ago. You kind of think of your hair products last. I was way more concerned with skincare and beauty and those products. But hair is actually a good place to focus as well, especially if you wash your hair every day. And there's so many wonderful clean shampoos that work really well. So that's an easy trade. Those would be kind of my top three: is focus on things that impact, your largest organ, your skin, and things that you're putting directly into your mouth.
And then people can go to your website. I think you have a lot of education on your website as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to put more and more. I have a lot of under the resources tab. There's a lot of links to like PDFs that other organizations like I've mentioned earlier that have put together. We have a blog that's growing and evolving. But probably the best place, and actually this is a recommendation you gave me, Ashley, when you first looked at my site. I've created a Start Here tab, and that it literally goes like, first thing to trade out, your dish pods. Next, laundry. Okay, now that you've done that, you want to get into your body. Okay, here's some lotions and soap. So if you go to the website and click Start Here, that kind of walks you through it. And then I also created a tab that is my personal, I've again tested everything. I only carry things I love. But I've shown you what I actually use in my house. Everything from my skincare routine to, my kids, they each have their own favorite products. So those are on there. And if you have a 14-year-old or a 3-year-old, you can see what my kids are using. So that's another good place to start if you just want a little bit of a recommendation.
Yeah, I think that's great too. And I'm so glad you added that. I think one, because it can feel overwhelming. And then two, because, not, these products are not all going to operate the same way. Like, for example, one of the things that I just got is a toothpaste. And it is a little different because it's clean and it's not going to operate sort of like function in the exact same way that I'm used to, but it's not a hard switch for me. So, but I think hearing that before you buy is actually super helpful so that you know what to expect. Not everything is going to be like a like for like trade. Like you're saying, the dish pods in your dishwasher probably are a like for like trade.
Right.
You're not going to notice a difference, but your toothpaste or maybe some of your lotions or other things, like it may not be exactly the same experience, and you explaining how that experience differs, I think is really useful for people so that they can set the right expectations and not give up, right? And the other thing is, like you've said, if you can't change everything, like that's okay. So if you really love one particular product, hopefully it's not a 10 and you can do the research, but focus on switching other products.
Totally. I have a girlfriend and she's like, Dana, I love what you're doing. I love that you're like an entrepreneur. But she's like, you're never getting my Tide. Like, you're not going to get my Tide. I love my Tide. It brings me joy. I'm like, awesome. Like, use your Tide. Let's just change out your candles. Like, she loves candles and burns them all the time. And all of her candles are, paraffin wax, which is essentially like gas fumes. It's petroleum based. So it's like gas fumes in your home. Wicks are typically lead based, so that's like emitting, lead, which they've gotten rid of in paint, but they haven't gotten rid of in wicks and candles that you burn. Let's just try out your candles. You won't even notice a difference. And sure enough, she's like, these are great. I love them. And so, yeah, like if you absolutely have to have something and you don't feel like it's causing any issues, then, that's not my place, right? It's like, I'm here to just help you with the baby steps and
Yeah.
the things you don't mind swapping out.
Yeah. And you mentioned this before, but I think it's worth sort of mentioning again and expanding upon, which is that you go to the grocery store, either you go to a store that, professes to have clean products through its marketing, or the products themselves say that they're clean or natural or these other words. And you've educated me that a lot of those products are actually not clean. So I thought I had a lot of clean products in my home that it turns out are actually not clean products. So can you just talk a little bit about that? And we also talked about, okay, the number of ingredients, you can look at that. The more ingredients, obviously, the more you should be concerned. So there's certain things sort of on the fly you can do. Some of these websites you were telling us before, like EWG and Made Clean, I think is the other
Made
one.
safe. Yeah.
Made Safe, sorry. You could look at that while you're in the grocery store. But can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I do think it's important. People might think they have clean products and they might actually not have clean products.
Yeah, I think, because I think back to like growing up, I'm like, this didn't seem like it was such an issue back then, like I feel like there weren't as many toxins. And again, this is my personal opinion. I think so much of it is that marketing has gotten so good. And there's so many more avenues for marketing. You've got the influencers, you've got social media, you've got, TV and print, and you have like, you're just getting bombarded all the time with marketing, including the packaging. I mean, I went in, there was a brand and they had the laundry detergent was in this like really beautiful, compostable, it kind of almost looked like cardboard. It was in this beautiful container and the front said natural. It had like a picture of a tree and a mountain and, and the scent was like, wildflower or something like that. And I looked it up and it was like a D and I found it, by the way, this was like a natural foods store, one of our natural food stores here in Park City. You cannot trust the store. You cannot trust the label. You cannot trust the packaging. It is all there to make you think you're buying something that you want, a cleaner alternative, right? So I would just say, like, really question everything. I'd love to tell you, like, our site is, in my opinion, I think we have the highest standards. I'm not venture backed. it's strictly me, myself, and I and I'm buying products that are 100% safe for repeated human use. I have a line of products I only carry one of because, like, for example, my dish pods, I only take the dish pods because the laundry detergent isn't clean enough, and I have other
Yeah.
cleaner alternatives that I have on the site. So I would just be really careful when you go into stores about what you're buying. And the same goes for food. I mean, I know, I'm sure at some point you'll have a food expert to dive into this, but you alluded to it. I mean, the more ingredients, a lot of the ingredients I carry, like it's like 4 or 5 ingredients.
Yeah.
I just got actually a dish soap, and it's like 3 ingredients, so that you can read them, you know what they are, like that's safe, right? If it's like
Yeah.
50 ingredients and half of them, it's like you need like a chemistry degree to read, you probably want to steer clear of that one. And the
And
biggest thing, like
yeah.
fragrance, I can't reiterate this enough. If it says fragrance, just that's the easiest weed out, and that'll weed out about 90% of the products.
Okay. And you and I talked about this before, like these natural food stores, they're probably trying, but um, the ingredients can change, like the formulations can change on these products. Like you said, within a line, you can have products that are clean and products that are not clean. And there are probably contracts that these stores have where they have to carry the entire line. So, we're not saying that they're trying to not have clean products. I think what we're saying is you are doing the work to make sure you have clean products, and you just can't be sure of that when you're looking, at a label that says natural or going to a store where you think they're going to supply you natural things.
Right, totally. And honestly, in the clean living, there's so many shades of gray, right? And an ingredient that may not be harmful to you or I could really send someone with an autoimmune condition into like a
Yeah.
tailspin. So my stores, like, we try to be the highest standard of clean. And these stores, I think no one is trying to put toxic things on their shelves. Like no one purposefully is doing that, right? But
Right.
it's again, it's all shades of gray. And
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I know that you are starting a 10,000 home challenge. Can
yeah.
you talk to us about that? Explain why you're doing it and what it is.
For sure. So I met this amazing lady. She has a company. She's rebranding it, but it was formerly called Primrose List. I think it's going to be called From the Inside, Clean it from the Inside. I don't know. Anyway, she does home audits. So she goes into people's homes and she will just look at what you have. And she will do everything from pantry to air to water. And she'll just offer up suggestions like, hey, you know, you don't need to do this all overnight, but like here's some suggestions on ways you could eliminate toxins in your home. And the reason she started this company is because she went through a 10-year phase of like many medical conditions that weren't treatable by Western medicine. Like she got mold toxicity from an apartment she was living in that flooded and had like mold and mildew, and she got toxicity from that. She had Lyme disease. She had all these kind of obscure illnesses, and a lot of it was due to toxins. So she had to get very serious about it. And she even went as far as like getting trained on, like she's an integrative health practitioner. And then she did a very like heavy duty toxic training on just the history of toxins. And so she's kind of like a little living, walking EWG in herself. So anyway, we collaborate. Clearly, she does the audits and I have the products. And one of her big goals at her 10-year mark of getting healthy, and again, a lot of this was just like she did this herself, like cleaning up the toxins in her world, was to help 10,000 homes be less toxic. And so we're collaborating on this mission. We're rolling it out next week. We'll definitely have it blasted all over social media. And, what does less toxic mean, right? It's like we talked about my friend who doesn't want to give up the tie, but she trades out her candles. That's less toxic, right? If Elizabeth's able to come into your home and just help offer up a few suggestions, that's helping you get less toxic. We're not going for non-toxic, right? Because I'm not even sure that's totally possible.
Right.
There's so many influences in our, and everything we interact with on a daily basis. So yeah, the mission's 10,000 less toxic homes. And we would love, again, the mission is to just get people, healthy people healthier. So, we'd love for you to be part of it if
Well,
if
I'm
it
in.
resonates.
I'm already in. Hopefully I can. I think it's an amazing starting point. Like we have to start somewhere, and 10,000 homes might seem like a lot to some people or a little to other people, but we really have to start somewhere. And then hopefully, what we can do through companies like yours and all of the companies of the products that you're carrying with their stories and advocacy is get some regulation change so that
Hmm.
it's easier and more widespread, right? So like the natural stores, they're really going to be carrying natural products or clean products, that would be the goal ultimately. So I started the On the Table with Ashley podcast to coincide and amplify the mission of my brand, Amatand, an elevated everyday tabletop brand with a goal of increasing connectedness among people. Each week, we send our guests a product from our current collection. And Dana, I sent you two of our ivory hand-thrown ceramic mugs, one of our ivory hand-thrown ceramic appetizer bowls, one of our own design wooden appetizer spoon. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. One strawberry rhubarb jam and one lemon curd, and one listening is the language of love cocktail napkin set or appetizer napkins, which is also our own design. So I'll never tire of talking about our ceramic mug. I use it every day. Dylan and I iterated on the shape and the design and how much liquid it holds and how the handle should be attached. I mean, for months and months. It's dishwasher safe and microwave safe, which I love because I reheat my coffee multiple
Yeah.
times a day, and the handle doesn't get hot in the microwave, which I love. Um, the appetizer bowl is also a shape we iterated on for a long time. We wanted something that would fit sort of just the right amount. It's like the Goldilocks appetizer bowl, just
Yeah.
the right amount of whatever it is, like chips or nuts or pickles or hummus. Because if you have too big of a bowl, it looks empty once people start using it, and if it's too small, you have to refill it all the time. So that's what we were going for there. The wooden spoon is something I haven't actually talked that much about yet. So during COVID, I started eating soup with a wooden spoon. I read a lot about that, and it's pretty common in Asia to use a wooden spoon to eat your soup. It's not common in the United States, but the spoons that I got were like a very different shape than we're used to. And we're working and we'll hopefully have like a wooden soup spoon at some point. But we started with a smaller sort of appetizer shaped spoon. Um, and it is both lightweight, I think beautiful, and perfect for like hummus or honey or nut butter or jam or lemon curd. Um, and they're also very strong. So these spoons are made of acacia wood, which is naturally resistant to bacteria and easy to clean. It's less porous than most wood, which means that it doesn't absorb liquids and odors from food as easily, but matches the strength and integrity of other hardwoods. So I'm super, super excited about the spoon. And again, hope to have a soup spoon in the future. And then lastly, the strawberry rhubarb jam and lemon curd both come from the Hudson Valley at a small operation that gets its fruit from surrounding farms. Many of them are women owned and family run farms. We love the flavor of both these products and hope you enjoy them too. So I always love to ask like for any comments so far on the products that you've had. And also since these designs are predominantly our own, we really want constructive feedback to make improvements in the future as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Like, it was such a sweet gesture. And like, I would have done this podcast just because I love chatting with you for an hour. So thank you. And I'll tell you, like, I was so excited the first morning. I do drink coffee every morning. I do like a superfood latte and I froth the milk. Like, I grew up in Seattle, right? So I like have been drinking coffee since I was like 14 years old. And it's just a ritual for me. It's a morning ritual. And your mug, like I mean, sometimes I'll throw it in a Yeti or whatever, and it just felt so much more special. It's actually changed the way I do my coffee in the morning. Like I really sit and enjoy it. And like oftentimes my kids are eating breakfast and I just listen to the noises coming out of them. I don't know, I felt like it felt very special. but also sturdy and not like I was going to break it. I was like, I put everything in the dishwasher. So I love that you actually like allow that, because most, some of like my wine glasses or whatever, it's like, don't put this in the dishwasher. I'm like, well, that's impossible. It's going in the dishwasher. Um, so I love that aspect of it. And then the bowl, actually, we do a lot of tacos, and so guacamole has like been a regular visitor in the bowl. And I'll say, like, I have a 3-year-old, right, and we have him eat on normal plates, like that's part of what we do in our family. And like he passed the bowl just like wonderfully, because it was about the right size for him. And then of course it's beautiful on the table, and one avocado filled it and didn't look, like you mentioned, like it's like empty, right?
Yeah.
So no, we've loved the products so much. And then I've got a little open warehouse party. I'm planning to use your napkins at the open warehouse party on
Oh,
Tuesday with a
great.
bunch of ladies. So
Perfect.
yes,
Yeah, those napkins, it may sound strange, but my entire idea for the company started with the napkins because I feel like one, all the like cocktail napkins that you see are like wine o'clock or, and I really didn't want, we live in Utah, not everybody drinks. I
right.
really didn't want it to be focused on alcohol. And over the last several years, like through COVID, I've done a lot of reading and spent a lot of time like thinking and reading about personal development. And so I wanted to have phrases that were like positive but not cheesy with interesting
Yeah.
designs. So the entire company started with me thinking about how to do a much better appetizer or cocktail napkin. And
I love
we
it.
and we had them, they're made in Germany. They're very high quality and yeah, like so I really love those napkins, which I guess
I
sounds
love that
strange.
story. I didn't know that about this. Like your napkins are like my laundry detergent, right? It's like funny how this one little spark turns into
That's
this
right.
entire company, and now you're doing these beautiful table sculptures, and your game sets are just stunning. I mean, that's such a cool story.
Well, thank you. So every episode, I like to end with the same 5 questions, and I hope you are game to answer them.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is, as we explore in my brand Amatant, objects can hold a lot of meaning for us, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. They can tie us to the past, enable us to enjoy the present more, or even take us into the future. Can you share an object from your life, whether it's one you still have or not, that holds a lot of meaning for you, and tell us why?
Ooh, that's a good one. I have a couple. I have like one item from each grandparent. My grandma five, I like my mom was one of 8, so there were like lots of grandkids. And when she passed away, we kind of each got to pick like one thing. And so I got this really beautiful silver mirror, and it's actually currently hanging in my daughter's room. But it's like, I think she bought it in Mexico. I mean, she probably paid $5 for it or something like that. But it just reminds me of her, and it like hangs in my home. And then on the flip side, my dad was the only child. So when his parents passed away, it was like there was like too much stuff, and they were collectors, and they collected stuff because they thought they would pass it down and it would have all this value, and like the grandkids would have these heirlooms that they'd use. And I really, like, I had to separate from stuff a little bit with them, because I of course wanted to take it all because it reminded me of them, but in the same breath, like, it was too much and it wasn't my
Yeah.
style. It didn't look good in my house, and I had to be okay with, like, you don't have to keep grandma's dining room table. Like, you can have your own dining room table. But the one thing of them that I absolutely love is I have these Christmas ornaments, and they're like old school. I can, like, I pull the box out and it's total old school print on it. It's all falling apart. I can smell their house. And they're just balls, like they're just the
Amazing.
metallic balls, but it's
Yeah.
always like the kids decorate the tree, and then I do the ball. Like, that's the last step, is they go on the tree. And then I'm like, so, like, I won't let anyone take them off the tree either. Like, I have to put them up and I have to take them down. So it's kind of a ritual. But it was also a, like, be okay with not having stuff, right? Like, it's okay. You don't have to have grandma's old chair and her old dining room table and her sculpture that she thought was so valuable that's actually worth nothing now.
Yeah. Well, that's why I ask whether it's an object you have or not, because I completely agree that objects that you don't physically have, you still have an attachment to and memories of. And those memories are actually the things that matter. And we're going to do an episode in the future with 2 women who are also based in Park City on They focus on helping you declutter and organize. And we'll talk a lot about that because I actually think it's super important to be able to let physical things go, but you never have to let go of the memories of how they make you
Right.
feel,
Yeah,
Uh,
totally. I love
so those are great stories. Thank you for sharing those. Um, and this may be, you maybe already did this, but can you also share a favorite tradition with us? It could be from when you were a kid, something you do with your family. It could revolve around food or a place you go or anything really.
Yeah. I mean, we're big outdoor people, so I would say my favorite moments with my family are they're always around camping or skiing or hiking or doing something like that. But if I had to pick like one tradition that I think will bring my kids home, even when they're out of the house, I think it'll bring them home for Christmas, is my husband makes sticky buns on Christmas morning. And like it's their thing. Like they get so excited. Like sure, the gifts and all that's they're excited about that too. But they're always like, "But sticky buns, right? Like Dad's making sticky buns, right?" Like that's like one of those little seeds we planted, hoping that it'll bring them back for many many years. Even when they have children.
Well, that's wonderful. And I know that that's a labor of love. I'm assuming that that's much like making cinnamon rolls from scratch, which a good friend of mine does for Christmas as well. And she taught me how to do it. And it's labor intensive.
Oh yeah, I mean it takes them like 2 days, and then he
Yeah.
like has to set the alarm for 3 a.m. to put him in like a hot water bath. To like, I mean it's yeah, it's
It's
for
a
sure.
once a year labor of love.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Are you in a phase in your life where you enjoy entertaining in your home? Why or why not?
So I have always loved entertaining, which is funny because again, I mentioned I'm like an introverted extrovert. So I guess it's kind of both the introvert and the extrovert in me. Like I love bringing people together, mostly because I love sitting back and watching and creating experiences that they walk away with. We hosted starting, see, we just hit our 20-year anniversary. So it's been 21 years. We hosted a friend's Thanksgiving. It was always the week before. It started with like my roommates before I was married. And when we left Boise in 2016, that last Friends Thanksgiving, I think we had 84 people in our home for a sit down dinner. Like we moved
Did you
furniture
say
out.
84?
Yeah. I mean, a rental company, I mean, literally, it's not like we had this huge home or anything. It's like we found places for people to sit, but it was sit down, everyone brings a dish. I think we cooked 4 turkeys and someone brought a prime rib that year. But I love entertaining, and it mostly because people still talk about Friends Thanksgiving, and it's for me, it brings so much joy to create experiences and events where people meet new friends or get to just have a night out away from the kids or whatever the part of the event that made someone smile. Like to me, that's what it's all about.
That's amazing. Do you have one or two tips for people? Because one of the things I'm trying to do with my brand, because a lot of the objects that I have are used for entertaining or eating or whatever. I'm trying to reduce the friction because some people have a harder time entertaining. They get nervous or they feel like they have to make everything or they're not sure if their house is going to look good. My sister, one of her pro tips was like, don't worry about the dust bunnies, which I think is a great one.
Yeah.
But do you have like a tip or two that you could share?
For me, I think it's like don't take it too seriously, right? I mean, so I'll give you an example. Like since we had a pretty nice a home that was pretty good for entertaining in Boise, and then we moved to Denver. We were in this old Victorian. We really could only have a couple couples over at a time because we just didn't have a lot of space. And now you've seen our home in Park City, but it's 3 floors, so it's not like this big open like a million people can gather. And I've kind of had this like resistance to really wanting to do any sort of party. And then I thought to myself, well, who cares, right? Like it's about the people,
Yeah.
it's about bringing people together. So I'm actually hosting one on Tuesday night. I think I'm going to have about 50 people. It's a Galentine's party. It's all a bunch of ladies from all different ages, all different aspects of my life here in Park City. And I'm like, it's going to work out fine. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to take it too seriously. And I think if you put that energy out there, then people respond to the energy more than the dust bunnies or the perfect tableware or the food or whatever, right?
Yeah. Totally agree. Okay. Do you have one or two top resources, books or websites or courses you could recommend? Obviously, we're going to recommend your website, and it doesn't have to be related to clean living. It could just be a favorite resource.
Yeah. I mean, lately I've been really into looking at longevity. So I just read Outlive by Peter Attia, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was just a really well done book. Um, Breathe is one I like. It talks
I've read
about
that. Yeah.
breathing in and out of your nose,
Yep.
why we sleep, Matthew Walker. I mean, those are kind of the books I end up reading a lot. Um, Clean was really fascinating. Not there is the clean, the cleanse one. That one's, if you want to do like a 7 day cleanse, that one's good. But this one's clean. It's all about skin,
Okay.
which I thought was fascinating. It's all about your microbiome. And the guy who wrote it like didn't shower for 3 years or something
Wow.
crazy like
Okay.
that. Um, yeah, those
Great.
were a few that are on my, top things.
I've read a couple of them, but I've got a couple more to read. That's amazing. Okay, last question. What do you do for yourself? Do you have a practice, a focus, a habit, or a daily routine that you adhere to that contributes to your success or wellness?
I would say like the first thing that came to mind was yoga. That's been a constant in my life. And I go through phases where I'll do it 5 or 6 days a week. I'll go through phases where it's maybe once a week. But again, I try not to be hard on myself and just get it in when I can.
Yeah,
So for me, it's easier to move. I've never been a good meditator, even though that's something I'm trying to get better at. But I find that like the movement in yoga is meditative to me. So
absolutely.
yeah, and then just getting outside. I mean, I love to mountain bike. I love to by myself with friends, with family, whatever, just being out there on the bike. Same thing with skiing. So
Yeah, I
I'd say
love that too.
nature and yoga are probably my two
And
still
we
there
are very lucky living in Park City to be able to get outdoors all
for
year
sure.
round and enjoy nature. It's just honestly, it's so amazing, and I think it is wellness for me. So,
Yeah.
well, Dana, thank you so much for joining today. It's been an amazing conversation. We'll put in the show notes, your Instagram, your website, the resources we've talked about. And we really look forward to watching your success. And because your success means that we're all being successful.
Well, thank you so much. Such a pleasure always chatting with you. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining On the Table with Ashley, where we'll meet individuals with thought provoking perspectives from their varied life experiences and professions. On the Table will cover any topic you or I can put on the table with the goal of increasing curiosity, respect, and understanding while decreasing judgment, even when the issues discussed have sharp and contrasting viewpoints. On the Table also bridges to my company, Attend, which has started with the goal of helping people connect more meaningfully through straightforward, skillfully made, bespoke home goods. Check us out at amattendre.com. That's AMEATENDRE.com, or on Instagram at attend. And if you have ideas for future podcast episodes, shoot us an email at reachoutanytime@amattendre.com. Thanks for listening.